Recording in progress.
Okay, we're going to call the study session to order. First up, we are going to talk about Pima Online. So, Dr. Amick?
Not a doctor, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Board members and Chair Riel and Chancellor Dren-Soda, thank you so much for having us as guests for us to have this conversation about online learning here at the college. And so we're going to go through a presentation, invite you to ask questions along the way, or we can have questions and discussions towards the end of the presentation. So getting started with an overview of what we hope to do here today is the following, some context of why we're here, the history of online learning, a little bit about Pima Online, and really want to share with you some information about the students as well, and then the future of online learning at the college. I want to acknowledge we have some real time limits here, and one of the things we will not be able to do today is to go inside some online courses. But do want to extend that invitation to you all as a follow-up or some other type of meeting where we can host you, possibly meet with a faculty person so that you can see what's happening, what our students are seeing and experiencing inside the online learning environment. Just wanted to offer that. This meeting came about with a conversation with Teresa asking our Dean of Distance Education, Josie Milliken, wondering how to learn more about what's happening with online learning at the college. And so thank you for asking that question, allowing us to be here today. And what I would say to all of you as board members is, as we go through this presentation, some of the awarenesses and takeaways for you will be pointed out, but to overview them as we go into them. Be listening for how you can maintain and expand your awareness of how online learning works at this institution and how you can expand how to reflect that in your strategies, Chancellor's goals, and really especially reflecting and understanding how this impacts our learners and our students. Also, wanting you to have a takeaway to understand the sheer scale and volume of online learning at this institution and its impact. And then probably one of the most important takeaways, I maybe even already mentioned, is how essential online learning is for the student's academic pathway. And we're going to spend some time going over that student feedback and that student voice of how critical online learning is for their educational attainment. In addition, some of what brings us here is we had this experience in the pandemic where everything went online in the matter of weeks. Those of us in online learning prefer to make a differentiation there that was remote emergency learning, and it's not to be confused with the online learning that we are offering students today. It has a lot more work put into the experience, much more structured. A lot of the student service aspects are there and known, and so we don't want anyone to be thinking that that is the online learning that we're offering to students based on those experiences. Now that we've emerging from this shift of the pandemic, one of the phenomena that's been experienced here at the college and nationwide, thought I had a stopwatch going, not a timer, so I could keep track of my time. Nationwide, what's being observed with online learning now, specifically at community colleges, is this high volume that has persisted. And the modality selection that students are making for online learning is not just happening here at the college, it's happening across the country. And we'll talk a little bit more about those details. But we want to continue to share that information with you and be in dialogue about how that can be supported for students at the institution. As we get started, we want to have a lot of clarity about what we're talking about here. And so just to review some of our modalities of how students can take their courses, the most obvious one that we're familiar with, of course, is in person. I go to the campus, I go to my class, I meet with the instructor and my fellow students in person probably several times a week. Hybrid is driving part of that learning experience into the virtual environment, but it's not technically under the Pima Online umbrella, and it's not defined as distance education by the Department of Education. It typically means there is reduced seat time, so instead of maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, a student is coming to that class once a week, still connected in person with my faculty and my fellow students, but some of those activities I can conduct in the online environment. It's very attractive for students. It has less of a commitment for them to schedule appearing on a campus. Not under the online learning umbrella, is taking place in the online learning software, D12 Brightspace. These are the 2 modalities that are offered for online learning. Virtual means synchronous online learning, in that a student is required to log on at a certain day and time, and they are directly getting instruction from their instructor in that online environment. They are there with their fellow online students. Pima uses the term virtual. That is a Pima-centric term. Other institutions call that synchronous required virtual meeting time, other terms. Synchronous is just such a word that can be hard to relate to, so we use virtual. The other aspect of the modality then is what we call online, which is asynchronous. And that is the student has the higher level of flexibility in that they can do their work as their schedule requires them. They still have due dates, they still have requirements that need to be turned in by dates. It's not a self-paced course. And what we hear from students on these 2 modalities is a high preference for the online asynchronous, and they share why they need that higher level of flexibility. The virtual offering makes up less than 5% of our offerings. The online asynchronous makes up about 43 or 44% of our offerings. You can see that difference. That is returning to the levels that it was prior pandemic. The students just share, if they're going to take it online, they want the flexibility. If they need to see a faculty person, they're fine just going to the class and not having to worry about the technology. Next, I want to share with you what has been the vision and mission defined by Pima Online. Our vision being that we will be a nationally recognized leader in exemplary online learning experiences, and our mission being that we will provide equitable access to innovative and high-quality online learning opportunities and student support services that empower students to achieve their educational goal. I'm very proud to share with you that we are fulfilling both our vision and our mission for students, and we'll have a chance to share some of those details. There's a lot of information or experiences folks have with online learning, and the one thing that I would share with you is it's easy to provide online learning. It's hard to do it great. And that's one of the things that we have really focused on and really feel that our students deserve is an innovative, high-quality learning experience and environment that ranges through the course that they enter into and experience, the way the faculty conduct themselves with their learning and interactivity, and the ease of which they can use the services or reach out to help, ranging from tutoring to being connected, to knowing what to expect, is some of what helps make online learning great at Pima Community College. So this is going back to alerting you to one of the takeaways that you will want to have from this session. And so when we think about the mission of Pima, current mission of Pima Community College to empower every learner every day for every goal, one thing to ask you to keep in your mindset is, how are we empowering every online learner every day for every goal? How are we ensuring that with our strategies and actions? Because we don't want to necessarily single them out, but we do want to make sure that the online learning is included as we reflect on and fulfill this mission. I want to take some time now to go over some of the data so that you have a picture of what online learning is at this institution. There are many ways to approach it, many ways to slice and dice it. So one of the ways that we're starting here is a picture of the downtown campus. You've been there, you know what it looks like, you know what it feels like, you know about how many students are there. In fact, this past semester, there were 3,422 students at the downtown campus. When we did our data gathering and submission for the Title V grant, which is to specifically support Hispanic serving institutions, we did a lot of disaggregation of that data. And so just for an illustration, there are not quite the same size as the downtown campus, but approaching it, 2,877 Hispanic identifying students that are exclusively online. And so that just helps paint a picture of what's happening with online learning at our institution. There is the number of students nearly the size that attend downtown campus that never come to a campus. They are 100% online and identify as Hispanic. And part of the grant and some of what we'll talk about is that is a significant number. And are we ensuring that we're meeting their needs so that they are successful and attaining their educational goals? Another hopefully helpful illustration is the West Campus, the largest campus that we have at the college. And as we head into the semester, they have 8,012 enrollments at the West Campus. And now to put that into perspective, as we enter into spring 2024, online learning has 19,818 enrollments. And what we want, this is another one of those what can you walk away with moments for online learning at the institution, is that online learning now makes up 47 to 48% of what's happening at the college. In fact, 65% of our students took at least one online course last year. And so when we think about graduation and all of those students going across, 65% of them needed at least one online course to help attain their goal to be able to walk across that stage. It's significant and it's large, as we can see. And let's continue to talk a little bit about that. So not only does online learning make up more than what's happening at the West Campus, it is now approaching making up more than is what's happening at all of the on-ground campuses. And so just want to stress the importance of this volume and scale that we're experiencing and how we meet the needs of these students. The one thing to share is this is the normal phenomena that is taking place at community colleges across the nation. The average is 50% online that's being reported and expected to persist. The other data point that I would share with you, the average that community colleges nationwide are experiencing with exclusively online students is 40%. Pima Community College is around the 30% of our enrollment is exclusively online. Greg, I'm just checking to see if you had a question.
Yeah, I did. That answered one of them about
Okay.
which exclusively online. I'm curious when students are choosing, for example, in this choice, how often, and you don't necessarily have to quantify this precisely off the topic, but I'm wondering how often are they choosing between equivalent in-person or online classes, or how often is the class they're looking for only offered online, therefore they're taking it online? Does that make sense? I'm trying to...
Yeah, and you're right, it is kind of elusive. We do have feedback from hundreds of comments, and that appears sometimes where they will say, I didn't want to take this class online. I wish I could have taken it in person. That comment does appear. The vast majority of our comments, however, are not that. They say, I have to have it online. And if I can't get it here, I either can't do my educational path or I have to go somewhere else. Because my life circumstance is that I need to do it online, is the far and away majority of one. And just to help reflect on that a little bit is the summer enrollment. The summer enrollment is over 70% online. It's very little that are taking place at the campuses. And when we talk to the students saying, should we put this at a campus? They're like, no. I cannot sit in an accelerated condensed course for 8 weeks that has me in that class for 3 hours, 5 days a week. I got stuff I got to do. I need the flexibility of online in summer.
And sorry, one other related question to maybe this probably would be only applicable to those that are solely online, that 30% that you're talking about. Does the college keep data on whether those students ever utilize the campuses for other services or do they just never set foot on one of the physical campuses when they're exclusively online?
We don't have that data to pinpoint that. We continue to have a lot of visibility for the services that are provided. And one of the aspects of those services that's an accreditation item is that we are required to offer like services online that we offer to face-to-face students. And so one of the issues with that is we're supposed to be providing it online. They're welcome to come on campus. And a little bit actually in inverse, there are opportunities, there have been in the past, to offer services exclusively to online students. Like one example would be the online tutoring. So it was a question, this is going to cost the college or students, should we constrain this virtual digital access to only those online, or should it be accessed by all students? And this is kind of one of the first conversations we had, Dolores, when you were provost. And so many of our services that are for online students are accessible to all students. And those face-to-face students say, yeah, this helps me a lot. I can access services virtually, but we're required to ensure that we have them for online students.
Okay, so I just wanted you to clarify. So you've stated that online classes, you're also offering them, at least one of them in person, or no?
I don't.
Do we offer that? Because there are some
yes,
students.
there are many of our classes are offered online and face-to-face as well.
Okay. And then I had some other questions, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit. But how do you evaluate the success rate of your online classes? Like, I'd like to know how many people actually finish. What do the faculty members think about the method of teaching? What's their preferred method? And, well, I guess I already said that. What is the success rate of each method of teaching?
Yeah, so our comprehensive success rate in online learning has lagged behind face-to-face success. And it ranges from about 6 to 9% lower in comprehensive success rate than face-to-face classes. That has been present, I think I've been in online learning for 27 years, and it used to be a chasm between the success rates. We have an initiative every single year to improve that. That is one of our #1 focuses, is to close that gap. And we have made progress about 1 or 2% a year, but the college as a whole has also been overall improving, so we're still lagging behind. Another area where we've done some analysis is instead of that comprehensive success rate, we've looked at, there are areas where the success rate is parallel. So for the most part, the entire business department has the same success rate online that it does face-to-face, even at times in some semesters online, a higher success rate that we see face-to-face. We do a lot of crunching on that. And so now where a lot of our focus has turned to is in online learning, where is the lowest success rate? And putting our efforts there. One of the newer roles that we've had is the embedded online success coach. They are in those courses where there's the lowest success rate, directly reaching out and working with those students to try to help improve those, because that is a very serious concern of how it impacts students, but now with the volume of online learning it has, how it impacts our overall success rate in totality. The second question you asked about faculty, there's a lot to answer there. We have faculty leaders in online learning that are some of the best in the nation. They prefer that modality and they lead out on it because they understand how critical it is for students to attain their goals. And the model that we have has those leaders helping provide oversight as a resource and a colleague to the faculty that are teaching online, so that they have a resource of how to do things in a best practice or any scenario that comes along for them. The other thing that I would share is prior to the pandemic, there was maybe more faculty that were like, I'm not sure if this is good online. I love the classroom. But emerging from the pandemic, I've talked to so many faculty that have had a conversion experience of, I love online now. I see how it helps students. I love the D2L tools. So not anything real quantitative there, but
I'm sorry. It has to do with, does it take the faculty more time? Does it require more of their time than if they were teaching an in-person class? Because I would imagine they have to prepare, and different times that they're looking at the students or having the class and then giving feedback would be different.
I do think teaching online can be very demanding, and faculty will talk about how to set boundaries and efficiencies, because one of the things that we really insist upon is being very responsive to a student's needs, but yet you can't be on 24/7 being responsive, and so trying to set expectations of what that is. One of the things that can help a faculty person for online learning is our instructional design unit does build and create this beautiful course. That is something that Pima has. My previous institutions didn't have that. The faculty individual had to build and create their entire course and put all that content inside that learning area. So that can help save time. I think the demands of teaching and instruction are high in online learning. In my experience, I actually found hybrid teaching and learning to be the most demanding, because I prepared and did it online, and if I was teaching online, I would have been done. But then I had to go to the classroom and do instruction there as well. I don't know if that helps.
I have two kinds of questions. The first is, do you want us to interrupt you as you go through this to ask questions?
Sure.
Or do you want us to wait till the end? I'm concerned I don't get to speak if I wait till the end.
Yeah, no, please.
And the second thing is, I think the board needs to have a conversation on what a study session is. Because we don't study much. We get talked at with a bunch of statistics, and we really don't get a chance to get our hands in there and play around with some things and pick your brains and things like that. So I'm wondering that if we maybe should change the format, that the presentation's an overview, brief, and that then we can ask questions that allows the expert to guide us into the answer, so that we have a better feel for what we think we need to know as opposed than what you think we need to know.
Yes.
Just a thought for the board, that's all. Want some of my questions now?
Yes,
Yep.
please.
What's the definition of enrollment?
Enrollment is, I think a way to differentiate it is from head count. So one student can enroll in multiple classes. And so counting enrollment is how many classes have students come into. And so one class could have 30 enrollments.
So it would be helpful for me that when we talk in those terms, that we also
Give
say
some definition.
there's 12,000 enrollments that service 300 students.
Okay.
That would be helpful for me, because then it gives me a better idea how many are participating in this, and is it a few, is it a lot? Are they taking a lot of courses, or taking a few courses? And, you know, in regards to rigor, how do you determine that an online class has the rigor equal to an in-person classroom? I've always been fascinated by the question, never known the answer.
Yeah, and you know, I would characterize the last 20 years. My dissertation was actually on that topic because I taught art, and that was the question of the day in the early 2000s. Are these students learning? Are they learning as well? And so the academic academy nationwide has thrown their weight against that question, and for the most part, a lot of it has to do with the quality that's being offered. So, for example, through our course development process, we have a subject matter expert who is a faculty in that field, and the instructional designers, web designers, and digital media producers help them build this with an incredibly detailed matrix to say, you're doing this activity, what outcome does it match in the course, so that you know what the work that you're doing is to fulfill certain course outcomes. And of course, those then are measured by assessments. And so there's been lots of research over the years of, especially in the sciences, are students learning the same? Are they performing the same on standardized tests after they go through classes?
How do we do that?
Yeah. What's that?
How do we do that?
By defining the outcomes and doing the assessments.
So do we have end-of-course assessments?
It depends on how they're designed. Often there is a final exam, there is a final assessment in courses.
Well, that would be a very easy way of simplifying that whole question. You know, the in-class students take the same assessment as the online students at the end of
Or
the
you have a term
course.
paper, or a term paper that's comprehensive to the class, as in face-to-face or in the online class.
So we're doing that?
Yes.
Okay, good. For the gen ed students, do we have any data that says our online students that receive an AA are doing as well as the in-class students that receive that AA when they get to the university system?
I don't have that kind of comprehensive, detailed information. What we have received from Arizona State University is they give us a report to the provost and chancellor of, these are the online students that have come to ASU into online programs. And incidentally, the number one online program that Pima College students are going into at ASU is engineering, online. And so we don't really have that comprehensive success. We will try to track some down and report it back.
Well, you don't need to do it for me. I mean,
I wonder about it too.
if I were you, I'd be very curious.
We do ask that question. And we hear specific stories from students, but not data points.
When I was a high school principal, I would get a computer printout from the 3 state universities on every one of our graduates that attended that institution and what their grades were in every course they took, semester by semester. So, for example, The math data could go to the math department, and they would see kids are having success above average in third-year algebra or calculus or second-year calculus or something like that, to try to get an indication if our courses were rigorous enough in order to prepare the student adequately for success at the next level. And we don't get any of that from the 3 state universities?
I don't know if
We can get that data, so I've been trading texts with Nick, and so we can provide that for all of us.
Well, I don't need to see it.
I know, but I
I'm
think we should
asking if-
all know.
one of the challenges that, when we've tried to explore these types of things in the past, is that we don't require or say to a student, you're going to get an online degree and you have to take online classes. The main phenomena that happens with our students is, oh, this semester I have to take them all online. Next semester, I'm not taking any of them online. The next semester, I'm going to take 1 or 2 online. It's such a mix of courses, and we don't require a student to say, I am an online student, and identify as that because they want to have that flexibility. So that's some of where we run into that data challenge.
Well, in a perfect world, the student would know what their learning style was, and they would select courses based on their own personal learning style,
And some
which
do,
that's a reach. But, you know, we do know students say, I need to have that person in there talking to me, and we have other students that say, hey, I can do that on a computer, and I get it. So I don't know how you get around that, but I'm curious on maybe if there's some kind of avenue where we could prepare students to better make those choices.
The one thing
The
that we
biggest
do-
shock I had at the University of Arizona my freshman year is when I went to the basement in the Modern Languages building that had 30 chairs bolted to the floor, and the TV went on to give a lecture in chemistry. I didn't do very well with that. And
So one of
was,
the ways that we try to address that need is we have created an orientation to online learning that every single student at this college is automatically enrolled into. And we also have it available on our website. So even if you're just thinking like, I don't know if I can do online learning, you can go through this orientation class. You know what it looks like and feels like, and can help with some of those decisions. When you were talking about learning style, is this for me or not? We do try to help with that.
it would be wonderful if a student can direct their own learning. I mean, I think that's what we would all try to get to at some point in time. And I'm just wondering how much time we spend having those conversations.
So I can chime in here too with advising. So the advisors, when they talk to the individual students, they ask them that question, you know, how comfortable are you with taking classes online? And as Michael said, as I have looked at the course shelves, there is an orientation or is online learning for you. And so students take that, and so it helps them understand if this is the right approach or not.
Yeah, and I'm talking specifically learning styles and not have 2 kids at home and I got to get to work. That seems to me what I hear about online learning. I don't have time to get on the bus and go across town and go to that campus and do that. I have a time problem. And those are 2 separate issues. And well, not that it doesn't happen or need to happen, but to have the student be able to make those choices themselves based on probability of success is all I'm saying.
One of the things that, one way that we help folks approach the possible challenges of online learning is to help develop the awareness of whatever shortcoming you have, it gets turned up to 10 in the online learning environment. So if you have a challenge reading, you're going to read more than you ever have in an online course. If you have time management issues or procrastination issues, they're going to get you harder in an online course. That concept also applies to faculty. Whatever your shortcoming is as a faculty person, students are going to see it in online. And so we try to help build that awareness and provide tools to address that prior to being an online course.
So if I'm at a cocktail party and a parent walks up to me and says, my student's a senior at Saguaro High School and getting ready to start Pima next fall, should he take online classes or in-person classes? What's my answer?
Depends on your student.
That's not going to help the parent.
Well, we'd go into a little deeper dialogue about that particular student to help navigate those questions, help them understand what resources are available so that they could vet and get a deeper understanding if it's a good fit for them.
So my answer would be, I have no idea,
No.
but this is where you go
Yeah.
to help you with that
Call us.
decision. And that would be where?
You know, they can contact me, Josie.
I think if we advance forward with the presentation, we have a whole section on our students.
Oh, she's just advocating we keep going through the presentation.
So I think as we advance forward through the presentation and talk about our students, specific online students, and why they choose online learning, that will help to elucidate some of the questions that come up for many of, well, I think we should just move forward and we get to the student area where we go over some of the students and hear their voices. That will really help clarify, and then if questions come up at that point, I'm just looking at the time, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to show you what we have.
So just touching base a little bit on the history of distance education at Pima Community College. Online learning began in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And it's interesting, as we prepared for this, we found some presentations to the board that were 10 years ago where faculty leaders were here asking for coordinated support and quality for online learning. That's part of what helped bring me here about 8 years ago, where I was charged with implementing Pima Online with the goal of centralizing quality so that we could assure that students could have a good experience. And that has really been my focus in my career, is students deserve a high-quality online learning experience with clarity and not confusing, so that they can achieve their educational goal. We could spend a significant amount of time here helping you kind of understand how online learning works at our college. Just an overview is we have about, and this is, I don't want to be throwing out like too much information so it's overwhelming, but just comprehensively, we have a unique structure. I mentioned the faculty leaders that Maria was asking about. How do faculty view online learning? We have 17 dedicated faculty leaders that they help us decide on expectations or requirements of what students need and what faculty need. They are leaders in innovation. They're pioneering the work of artificial intelligence. They're very involved with the cutting edge of education and exploring it. We have an area of online student success and student services that are dedicated to specific needs of online students to ensure that there's a focus there and helping address those. That is what helped bring the Title V Hispanic Serving Institution grant into place. It really expands the support for all of our students, all of our online students. We have an area called the Center for Learning Technology. This is our instructional design unit that helps build these online courses. There's web designers involved with that. There's a digital media production that's involved with that. They also have a fairly new unit of educational technologists. One of the challenges, again, of doing online learning is like, hey, here's this cool technology. Here you go. Not helpful. We have a process that gets feedback from the students and faculty about how educational technology needs to be supported so it works well for the students. We have over 23 programs and certificates that can be completed 100% online. We have an Office of Partnerships and Operations that helps make sure everything is working, and they are also charged with supporting the oversight for the out-of-state online students that we have at the institution. We have a quality review process. You were speaking to that, Dr. McLean, of how do we ensure there's quality. We have so many courses and so many students, that is a significant concern. And so we now have an office dedicated to making sure all kinds of quality assurance is met in these online courses. From the minute a student steps into that course, we take that very seriously, that there's clarity of information, accuracy of information, because that can be the point right there where they say, I can't do this, and log out. We have also under online learning, which is a little unique, is the learning management system. The online environment, D2L Brightspace, is managed by my area. That's been awesome because it's so collaborative with the faculty to ensure that it's set up and functioning the way it needs to for students and faculty. It's utilized across the whole college. Every class that's offered here has a shell created in that online learning environment, and they use the electronic gradebook. They have over 700,000 logins a month into this environment. So just kind of sharing that piece. We host a Pima Online Educators Conference once a year with 300 folks from Pima attending, about 25 from across the nation. We've received national recognition for how we use our LMS to do that. One of the amazing things about Pima Online is how the national experts have evaluated and responded to it comprehensively. We have received national awards for our faculty being recognized as outstanding online instructors. Our students have been recognized. Our online classes have been designated some of the best in the nation. We've received accolades for innovation in educational technology, and most recently have been recognized as the best online learning community college in the top 100 from Newsweek and the top 10 from Forbes. It's very overwhelming to and important for you to recognize the comprehensive acknowledgement of the good way that we are doing online learning. Okay. Also wanted to give you some of the financial picture. This does cause me to remember one other financial thing I wanted to share with you, and that is in regards to open education resources. OER is a free of copyright textbook that students utilize in their courses. When I first arrived here in 2015 and 16, the students were coming to the board saying, we've got to reduce the textbook costs. And we started an initiative in Pima Online to create a complete degree pathway where a student would not have to pay for one textbook. In the spring of 2017, I remember meeting with President at the time, Lorraine Morales, to share that we had saved students $27,000 that they did not have to pay for textbooks, and we were so celebratory. Last semester, we saved students over $980,000 that they did not need to pay for textbooks, and this initiative has saved students over $11 million. Think about that with like student loans. There's not $11 million worth of student loans out there in our community that our students don't have to deal with. So I did want to mention that. Here's the operating budget for Pima Online. A little over $1.8 million. Please note this does not include any of the salaries but it's just our operating budget. 1/3 of that budget is going for D2L Brightspace, the learning management system that is used across the college. So I just wanted you to have some of that financial picture. We think it's a bargain for half the enrollment. So now what we really wanted to get a chance to share with you information directly from our students. And again, going back to some of the 3 or 4 takeaways for the board, we advocate for really understanding the voice of the online student and the needs of the online student. mention that our students have been recognized, and they are contributing to the culture of Pima Online. Webster Rose was our commencement speaker, first time we came back in person after the pandemic, sharing his inspiration with us. Namrata Patel served as a senator and a huge advocate for online learners and their needs, and would let us know, you can't do this, you have to do this for online learners. And they both completed their programs 100% online. We have been doing all kinds of engagement with online students in a variety of ways, and just wanted to share with you a little bit of what that looks like. When we have our conferences, we take the time to ensure that we have a panel of online students. It is one of the most popular and favorite amongst conference or retreat attendees, because they get to hear directly from online students. What do you like? What doesn't work? What bothers you? Do you like this? It's been a really great method for one of the ways that we get direct student feedback. Just sharing with you some of the data of, Dr. McLean, you were referring to this, of why do students take online learning. These are national statistics that we're looking at comprehensively here. And I want to go ahead and step to some of the data we have from Pima Online students. So again, very important that we hear from our students. We partake in a survey every 2 years called the Priority Survey of Online Learners, where students give feedback about every aspect of their online learning experience. They share how important it is to them, how satisfied or dissatisfied they are with it. It also surveys why they are taking online learning, and you can see some of the examples here of how important online learning is for them in their educational pathway. With this survey, we first implemented this survey in 2016, in which online learning at this college was below average in every single category compared to the national data point. We will be doing it again this March. We do it every 2 years. 2 years ago, we were above average in over 75% of the categories in student feedback and student satisfaction. So getting to some of the direct voice of our students, this is from the survey. We received, I think, over 1,000 comments. So going into some of the qualitative feedback that's important for us to know. I could not have taken this path if I had not had this opportunity to go to college online. That summarizes a lot of what we hear from our students. For me, it's always super fun to ask a student, why are you taking this online? We put them in these categories, but they always have a really interesting story to share. The most recent one was Nadia, had just moved here from Wisconsin with her significant other, and she is starting a business, a dog sitting and dog boarding business. And she's like, I have to take my classes online because I have to be here with these dogs and take care of them. So that was one of the more unique ones I've heard recently. Also family needs, whether it's taking care of children or significant other or older family members, they need to take it online, they can accelerate it online, and the student sharing that it was a good experience for them. Other comments from students. So happy to have taken my online classes. They fit my schedule. I like being able to take my classes strictly online because it gives me the ability to work full-time. This is something that we're hearing from our students more and more because of the economic situation, the high cost of rent. Students are sharing, I have to work. I have to be able to make my payments. And so without online learning, I would not be able to go to college. I'd have to wait and try to get the money and then be able to go and work less. It goes back to that point of really wanting to make sure that you can manage your time. We have a time management calculator in our online website that can help students identify that. And this other comment here, just trying to round this out, an in-person class was too far away. What you were kind of asking about previously, Board Member Garcia, about it was not offered at the East Campus, it was offered at the West Campus. We do get some of those comments. Here's a student that was face-to-face, but the pandemic taught them that they could be online. It helps them balance their work, school, and parenting. A foreign student thanking us for having online learning available. And so just giving you this picture of the direct voice of our online students. Now I just want to shift a little bit into this Student Success Department focus. There's a lot going on this screen, but getting into some of your questions, Dr. McLean, we have the orientation to online learning. We have sessions that students can sign up for to say, hey, teach me, help me prepare to be online. I want to talk directly to a person to help me with that. We have other students employed as Pima Online navigators, and they host hours. Folks can log in on the weekend, talk to a student. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing right now, but I got to get this done. They can connect with a navigator. I talked about our coaches as well, that we're focused on those low success courses and want to improve that. A lot of what I just showed you ties into this Title V grant that's going to allow us to expand on our success coaches, expand on an engagement coordinator who just started today in his role, and also looking at some engagement software that the University of Arizona also uses. The main focus and what we hear from our students, they want a sense of belonging in that online environment, just like we're seeking to provide that here at the college in our campuses. So, starting to conclude here, I just want to go back to some of those concluding takeaways, asking you to continue to expand and reflect on the awareness of online learning at the institution and its sheer scale and volume, and how that plays into strategies and supports. And being aware of how critical online learning is for the attainment of educational goals that our students have and that they share with us. With that, I want to ask Jeff Tees to come forward and speak to some of the future of Pima Online that we've been dialoguing about.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? I'm going to be brief because I know you probably still have other questions you may want to ask Michael, Josie, and or myself. So one of the challenges when I stepped into this role is to focus the college on two things, and they're actually part of the chancellor's goal. One of them's buried kind of in that persistence, retention, completion, and we have to disaggregate. We have to look at students by race, ethnicity, by age, by program, by modality. In other words, are they taking classes at a campus, multiple campuses, online and campuses, fully online? And we have to be thinking about that in an efficient and an effective way moving forward. So what is the future model of how we support our students, regardless of the modality, keeping in mind all the great successful things that we have done in the Pima Online division over the last 8 years, but also recognizing we have a limited resource pool, right? And how do we distribute our human and operational resources in a way that continues to move the needle forward for success for our Hispanic Latino students, our Native American students, students that are fully online, students that are part-time and only taking 6 credits, students in a level 1 cert, students in an Associates of Science looking to transfer to the U of A. What are we doing to improve student success? So those are the two kind of deeper thoughts that are going through the process of how can we help support our students. A lot of what you see in the Title V Strive Online grant is supporting students from those wraparound services, giving them a location. Although it be virtual, we realize that some students, it's kind of like DoorDash, right? I never would have thought people were going to have to deliver food on a regular basis to people, right? The store is a half a mile away. But how is it that we're at a point now where DoorDash and these other companies are these significant, it's not like we're all confined to our houses still, right? Like we were in COVID, but people got used to a luxury or maybe not even a luxury, keeping their life simpler in one way so they could be more dedicated in others, right? And so that idea of flexibility and accountability and support that we need to have, refocusing always on the student success their experience at the college. How can we make it better? How can we get to our institutional targets? Because that's the provost's office guiding light is institutional target 2 this year, and in all years, obviously, but we really are hyper-focused on target 2, which was the idea that we were doubling completers in those 3 areas, right? Our Hispanic Latino, our Native American, and our African American populations. And so how does the resources that we have, kind of the neutral, the zero-sum game of resources that we have our access to, best utilized to support our students moving forward? So we held some forums in the fall to get some feedback college-wide on the different types of models that could exist in Pima Online, starting from a decentralized model to a fully centralized model. Think of the fully centralized as what ASU or U of A has done by purchasing Ashford, what the University of Idaho has done by trying to purchase the University of Phoenix. They have standalone colleges that have their standalone employees. We're not suggesting that we go anywhere near that, but there are variations between that, and there is no Pima Online, and we just expect the college to operate online modality courses within its regular structure, right? So you can imagine there's a blend of possibilities in between those 2 extreme scenarios. And I'll end it at that, so we have some time for more questions.
I have one. So in terms of that last slide where you're talking about the future, in terms of what we as the board have the power to give you, like what do you need? Like what are you lacking, or what barriers can we help you bring down in terms of being able to move forward in the direction you want?
So I think one of the thing was the objectives that we noted, just to ensure that part of the reflection is how are we serving every learner every day for every need, and including that awareness that online learning is 47 to 48% of what's happening at the college.
And I think although it's an ongoing conversation, it has been for a while, is just understanding where we are with respect to having brick and mortar spots in this online virtual place, and how is it that we manage the current 5 brick and mortar campuses and this online space. It's not going away, right? So how does that factor into a lot of the decisions that need to be made moving forward?
One other point to that is, Dr. McLean, you were asking earlier about that component of learning style, and then also that component of need for flexibility, the ability to fit it into a life, and one of the pieces of that is that in reality, some students sacrifice what they know might be the best modality for them, face-to-face, and they take online because they know it is the only option that will offer them the opportunity to succeed. And one of the beauties of that is that with our course developments, we can utilize strategies like a strategy called UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It's a strategy to use to develop online courses so that they meet the needs of different learners with different styles of learning. And so that one of the things that we know that research has shown can increase success rates are those wraparound services. So the Title V grant is going to offer a great opportunity to elevate student success. And peer-to-peer mentoring, providing that sense of belonging, research has shown that peer-to-peer, higher than anything else, higher than instructor to student, can elevate a student's opportunity for success. So the Title V grant is going to help with a lot of that. Still, there are other areas where we know that we could, if we had the additional resources, we could provide the additional supports to students to achieve a higher level of success. Because when they enter an online classroom, they don't see people around them. They don't see students walking by in the hallway, and that can feel isolating. But the more that they have that support, and have these opportunities to connect with others in the environment, the greater their opportunity for success. So to Chairperson Greg Taylor, your point, one of those things is resources and carrying this information forward, both the student need for online learning, the community need for online learning, how it serves students in the community, the value of the online courses, and the consistent quality of improvement efforts, and the need to even provide additional student support does require additional resources.
Can you give me an example of one of those things that we don't do now that could be implemented to
Sure.
give more of that connectedness?
Exactly. What you'll find nationally is that it is not uncommon to find a success gap at any institution of higher education between online and in-person. One of the resources that we know from other institutions that have utilized it that has helped is to have faculty mentors. And these are mentors hired specifically for that role. They don't teach classes as a faculty member would, rather that's an isolated role that's specifically there to serve faculty and help them interact more effectively. They are skilled and experts in strategies for that instructor-student interaction. So that's one additional resource that would help. And then the more we have a growing demand to integrate success coaches into online courses. And that's another area where there's just a lack of resources to be able to provide that success coach resource in as many online courses as we'd like to, particularly those that are struggling with a lower success rate compared to others.
Thank you. And this is more of an editorial comment than a question. But just, what struck me when you were talking, especially when you were talking about budgets, I kept thinking back to what we spent $1 million on that air conditioning thing in 29th Street a couple months ago. I'm not saying that was the wrong choice. I mean, there were a lot of reasons why it was, but that $1 million could have increased the budget for a third of our students by 50%. In terms of what was going on here. So when we're having conversations and, Dave's presenting these things and I keep harping on efficiencies, and talking about all this physical infrastructure that we maintain, because we do that, we can't do things like this because this is a third of our students that are fully online. And so we are so hamstrung by this physical infrastructure that we maintain. It really does impugn our ability to do some things that could make a meaningful difference for giant chunks of the student population, for whatever that's worth.
And as Vice President of Distance Education, Michael Amick shared earlier, is that we know that this is a lot, that we went through a lot of information today in a very short amount of time. And so we would be happy to coordinate through the Chancellor's office, some individual or group meetings and tailor those specifically to questions you'd like to have to be able to expand on what we went over today.
I do have a few more questions.
So do I.
Okay.
A comment first, I would prefer to have the slides and you abbreviate the presentation, because what I was fearful of and what I said earlier was, you're going to talk, and then we're not going to have enough time to talk, we're almost 10 minutes over. So it did happen. And I think another piece of this, when we see a budget, and I'm not talking at you, I'm talking to everybody. When we see a budget slide where it says the tuition revenue is this, the expenses is this, net tuition revenue is 1.879, that tells me nothing. It doesn't tell me what the cost is. And there is going to be, my prediction, several conversations about differentiated tuition. And what does this mean to that conversation? In other words, how much does it cost us to deliver a unit to a student online versus how much does it cost us to deliver a unit, same unit, to a student in person? And it's going to help us make some budget decisions in the future that's going to be essential. And I think sometimes we skirt around that because even when Dr. B gives us a presentation, well, it costs us this much for increment, it costs us this much for a operating expense increase, and it doesn't tell us how much it costs us to educate a student. So I think in the future when we get these presentations, I think we ought to start thinking that way. If it costs more to do this, we maybe need to charge the student more. If it costs less, then we may have a profit that would offset some other operating expenses. So that's the kind of stuff I would like to see in these presentations so that we can use that data to make good informed decisions about what we want to do as far as the budget's concerned.
If I may, if it would help, one of the reasons we included that slide was to highlight that our LMS, so our learning management system, it represents about 1/3 of the budget. And the point there that is our facilities budget, essentially. But that serves the whole institution. So in these conversations that we've had, the Shaping the Future of Pima Online, that's part of that conversation. Does it all belong in one budgeting area? So I don't know if that's helpful, but that was part of the intent in including that slide.
I'm not sure I read that, but in Pearson is the one that provides that service?
The LMS is D2L Brightspace, and that is the learning management system.
I was looking at slide 32, but it's in there a couple of times.
Yes. Sorry.
You don't have to answer that, but I'm just trying to make a point. And the point is, give us the information, but don't read it to us.
Yeah.
And let us assimilate some of that, and then maybe we have more time for this kind of conversation,
No,
which
we only went through half the slides.
yeah, well, I was thinking 46 slides and 1 minute per slide, and we don't get to talk.
No, we only wanted to have this as additional information, just as you cited. And we'll say that Dave B. does ask those questions, especially related to these partnerships. We're trying to illustrate the amount of revenue that's come in, but he does ask us to expand on what are the actual costs, what are the comprehensive costs for anything that's not core to just Pima Online, any type of partnership.
I'm sure he does, and you can imagine the questions we ask him when we're talking about the budget. So just for future reference, that's my personal opinion. I don't know how the other board members feel.
And we wanted to, I'm sorry, Board Chair. We wanted to provide, this is more of an introduction and orientation to Pima Online, and we can have subsequent study sessions or more conversations, or as Josie said, you could meet in pairs, or they can go through a demo with you so you can see fully what the Brightspace is. That's the portal that where each faculty member, not just Pima Online, but the entire college uses to enter the classroom, the virtual classroom. But we'll keep that in mind about the format.
So I want to say thank you. I have a benefit of having taught online. I did teach, build, lead, all those courses.
Awesome.
Before they required all of our faculty to use the D2L gradebook, I was telling everybody in my buildings at the East Campus, this is the coolest thing. A student comes up to you and says, hey, what's my grade? Look online. And I showed so many of my fellow faculty members how to put it on the D2L gradebook. So I firmly believe in all of that. Now, having said that, I have two concerns. The questions we ask are super important as far as getting data, right? If we don't ask the right questions, we don't get the answers that are beneficial to us, trying to grow our programs, trying to make them better, right? And I think, some important questions are the questions of, would you prefer to take this in a different modality? If so, how? Because I think that's really, really important, right? For people who are naysayers to online learning, if you can show that, 62% of our students say, no, this is the best modality for me, right? And then if some say, oh, and then why didn't you take it in your other modality? Well, it wasn't offered. That also gives the college some information that I don't think we're getting right now. So that's my first thing about the data. My last experience teaching online when I retired, when I was adjunct, I taught one semester, and it ruined me for teaching forever, I believe. And the reason for that is because the students weren't prepared, the students weren't willing to do the work online. It was a Calc 1 class, which I think in best of times is a tough class to do. So I think that, we really need to make sure we're doing, and by the way, only one student passed with a D. Nobody else passed in the class. So that means all of those students, no retention, no persistence, no whatever, right? And I had 5% of my grade, they had to do a video and present it because of the lead class I took. They showed us how to do the videos. I thought that was brilliant. And then 5% of their grade, they had to participate once a week in a virtual meeting that I would have online. I'd have it every day, but you didn't have to go every day. You had to go only one day. All of the students did hardly none of that. And when the very end of the semester, I said, why didn't, you missed your D by, 47 points. You would have had all of those points. You would have had a C. Why didn't, well, it was only 5%, and so I think that, a lot of times students don't realize what those percentages mean. You can miss your D or your C or your A by 5%, and why make that mistake? Then the last thing I wanted to say was, is this a moneymaker for the college? Like, is it, and I don't mean to be, crass or rude or any of that, but is it financially more efficient to teach online than it is to teach in classrooms?
So I just want to say I'm sorry that you had such a challenging experience. I hear those stories. I have heard them constantly throughout my career, and again, it's my focus to do the work so that there are items in place that you as a faculty person and those students have a better experience. And I'm very thankful for the work our team has done to address that. As far as the financial item, I think maybe Dave B. could speak more directly to what our financial situation is when it comes to online learning. But that is a common topic and common question nationally. And it depends on who you talk to and how it's analyzed. Some say that it saves a ton of money because you don't have to deal with facilities costs. But what it really comes out is if you want to do online learning with a high level of excellence, you can't just do it on, you don't need anything, we don't need to structure this. There is significant structure and significant resources that are needed to do it well, especially for the students, and they deserve that.
And then just my final question, this is not part of my knowledge. When I was teaching, online classes were in the department, so online math was part of the math department. And I heard that it's not that way anymore. So maybe not now because we do have a lot more things, but that would be one thing that would be important for all of the board to know why we moved from a departmental type modality, I don't know if that's the right word, to where it's housed under Pima online, all online courses. And I could be wrong there. Maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, that was such a problem when Pima Online was implemented that we put all of that data back. So the curriculum and the enrollment counts are by the area for mathematics. It's our job to build the course and provide all the services for the faculty that are teaching it, the students that are taking it, so that they have a high quality experience. So it's kind of both. The curricular aspects definitely belong to the academic division. But we do have faculty leaders. We have mathematics faculty leaders that do the scheduling for online, do the support for those faculty. So it's a mix.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for all of your questions and hope to continue to follow up with them. Thank you.
Okay, and then our second item is Libby and Joseph. ACCT Legislative Summit Agenda.
Chair Riel, members of the board. I'm Joseph Mays. I'm Director of Government and Community Relations. I'm speaking on behalf of Libby, who has a little tickle in her throat and out of abundance of caution is masking tonight, so I'll be the standard bearer. We are planning our annual trip to DC, as you know, in February, in a few weeks. So I thought for the agenda, I could quickly go over what I have in this packet for you. I could talk a little bit about some of the priorities of things we want to make sure we cover while we're in DC with our elected officials, and then I'll briefly introduce the students who we're bringing along with us. So in your packet, we have a lot of things sort of pulled together. The first page is sort of the itinerary, so you can see what your expectations of your schedule will look like. Right now, our contract lobbyist, Tracy Tucker in Washington, D.C., is planning meetings with members of Congress. She always has a tricky job doing that, but this trip in particular is a short week for Congress, and so it's harder to pin them down on times, and so that is not in here, but I will be updating this as those meetings land. So I will have another copy of that when we have our journey. There's some material from the Association of Community College Trustees. That is their legislative priorities and some of the things happening, just to FYI, in that first section. In the second section is information on Pima Community College, introducing who we are and important information for members of Congress. We often refer to these things as leave-behinds because we'll make copies of these that we can leave in the congressional offices to give them information about our school, some of our successes, some of the things we do. It includes things like enrollment and number of our demographics and information about, for instance, the percentage of students online. In section 3, we have the talking points, and so this is the document that we want to make sure you get a chance to look over. These are the things we want to make sure we sort of touch base on when we have meetings with elected officials in Washington. The next section is just a quick outline of those elected officials, so it tells you who they are and some of the statements or their own introductions from their online websites and some of their key posts in Congress, their committee assignments. And then the last section has data from our daily registration report. The one was pulled today for this spring, and the other one is from the last day of the fall report. So going over a couple of important things that I wanted to make sure just to bring to your attention regarding the talking points. One of the things we always want to do when we're in front of our members in the federal legislature is to thank them for their work. We have a delegation right now that is very supportive of Pima Community College and has done a lot for us. In particular, we want to express gratitude to both of our senators who have done quite a bit of work to help in their appropriations priorities that are still being finalized and negotiated. A $2.5 million for the college related to the health professions. And we also that same program was proposed by Congressman Grijalva in the House of Representatives, though the bill that the House passed did not have that $2.5 million, but we can still thank him for the efforts he made on our behalf. And then we met with Siscomani staff. A few of the board members were at that tour that his staffer did of the health professions construction, and in that she mentioned that Siscomani would be looking out for that when the sort of two sides are negotiating a budget, and trying to make sure that we can keep something in there, or at least look out for Pima in some ways. So we can thank him for those efforts as well. The other big issue, just to highlight, is the short-term Pell. Short-term Pell has been a bipartisan, supported bipartisanly for many years, and Pima has been pushing for that for a long time. It's hard to move legislation at the federal level, and so those things take a long time. But this year, the House of Representatives did in fact pass a bill. The bill in its form that the House passed, excuse me, has a couple things that Pima might be concerned about, but I think there's still a negotiation with the Senate that hasn't passed a bill yet and has a different bill in mind. And we've shared with senators some of our concerns there. The second point I would make is that the bill that, if in its current structure, if it does pass, is really a tester bill. It's not a very large authorization of money, and so if it was passed, it wouldn't have much of an impact on Pima regardless, right? Because the amount of money they're talking about is a pretty small sum for a national program. And so a lot of it is meant to be sort of testing the waters and seeing how this program goes so that we can make it stronger in the future. So we don't have to we don't have to pound our fists about our disagreement with the bill in its current form, because it's largely insignificant currently, in that it's very significant to get this done, but it's maybe less significant the details for now. And then the third point I would make is that we definitely want to be seen, and we make strong efforts here as partners in solving the problems rather than sort of focusing on our disagreements with the stuff. And so I think we can share, especially with the senators, that we would like to see their bill move forward with some of our priorities, but we don't have to focus on the negative parts of the bill per se. I'm happy to answer questions as we go.
My experience when dealing with either the state or the federal representatives, that they tend to light up when the students start speaking. And I'm wondering, is our strategy this year to let one or all the students make this presentation, and then we listen to the comments made by the elected official or staff and enter in after that conversation has started? Or what do you expect us in that regards to do?
So yeah, that's a great question. I did suggest in my conversation with the chancellor that it maybe makes sense to have the students go first, because as you said, the elected officials in Washington, they do light up when they see students, and that is such a selling point for the college. And so I do think it makes sense to maybe have them be the first speakers, and then we can move to board members and others who want to share their thoughts. We obviously I don't want to make the decision for you, but I think that makes sense.
Well, that has my vote.
Okay, great.
Because there's just no question that their influence is going to be greater than ours. And can you give us a sense of the anxiety that's going on right now about November with the people that we hope to speak to? I mean, there are some that are going to be there no matter what happens.
Right.
But it seems to me that there's an upheaval going on right now with the R's and the independent, whatever she decides she's going to be. And I would suspect we're not going to talk about any of that. Right. But there's a comfort level with Congressman Grijalva that probably doesn't exist with most of the other ones. Do we need to make a statement about support in the past? Is that one of our strategies?
Support, I'm sorry, you said make a statement about?
Their support of us in Southern Arizona.
I do think it's important to thank them for the work they've done for Pima. I think, yeah, it's a good idea not to wade into the political atmosphere. I think one of the benefits of February is that we're still early enough that it isn't the center of attention quite yet. It will, we can still have a conversation about our policy priorities without, and people will be listening to the staff and the elected officials will be listening without being completely distracted by the.
So perhaps worth consideration is having the students make a presentation on how you can help us, and then let maybe us thank them for their support that they've given us over the past, and divvy it up that way, that we can speak somewhat politically in that regard, that, you know, thank you so much for what you've done for us, and ask Chair Real if she gave Sisquamani an A or a B, and can she change the grade?
He was a great student. I'm sure he got A's. I don't remember, but I remember how great he was, so. So this is a little off the topic, but there was that letter that was written to the HLC, and they also forwarded it to all of our elected officials. Is that anything that we feel the need to send, them the results of what HLC said? Or do they just, you think that they don't even care, they don't need any, evidence that HLC didn't think what was written was accurate or affecting the college? Oh, well, yeah, if they didn't read it, we don't want to send them anything, but, anyway, I was just wondering what the process in those kind of situations is.
So my gut reaction would be to say we don't bring up topics to them that they don't bring to us, if it's, especially if it's things that are touchy.
I'm just sort of building on what Wade was saying. I mean, I agree that the students should be first. I mean, in my experience last year, like he said, the elected officials were far more interested in talking to them than any of us, and so would I. So I think putting them first makes sense. The other thing, I think there were probably too many of us. I mean, we were a big group with like all 5 of us, and then the 3 students, and then the staff that were along. And so I wonder if it may make sense if we're maybe more strategic about which of us, in terms of the board members, are attending which one of those meetings, and make it no more than 2 or maybe 3 of us. And you can divvy that up based on however you want. Maybe we assess who has relationships with who, or if no one has relationships, with some other criteria to use. But the meetings were short because they don't have a ton of time, and I feel like sometimes introductions consumed half of it when we were just going around the room trying to say who everybody was, rather than getting into the meat of what the actual issue is. And you're certainly not going to offend me if you're like, Greg, don't go to this one, but go to that one. Like, wherever you need me is fine. But it may make sense for us not to be like this group of 12 or whatever we were last time, trying to cram into all those little conference rooms.
I appreciate you saying that, and I do think this is a thing that Tracy raises often as a concern, and I did mention it to the Chancellor as well when we spoke earlier, that it is something we should think about, is ways to limit our number. And so one thought I had, if you're amenable to it, is maybe we can have the list of meetings and then say, have, like you said, you're based on your relationships or your preferences, have the board choose sort of 1 or 2 that you go to, and so that we have 1 or 2, no more than 3 board members at any one given meeting. And then the students, we can do the same thing with. I also told Tracy I'm comfortable standing in the hallway while everybody's in the meeting, if that's necessary to a larger meeting.
And I'm fine if you want to send it to us, but honestly, if you just want to like recommend for each one, and we can always change it, but that might help just kind of get it going, okay, that you think me and Maria should go to this one, and Wade and Teresa should go to that one, or whatever it is. And if someone needs to call me and tell me who do I know, or who do I have a good relationship with or not a good relationship, I'm happy to have that conversation. But
wasn't it the way we did it the first day? Because like I didn't go to Mark Kelly's meeting. I think some of us were doing something else. And so I think that...
Yeah, we did have one last time. There was, Senator Kelly was addressing the Arizona Community College Association, all of the community colleges of Arizona, in a big room in the hotel. And then we had a meeting with his education staffer And so we sort of split into two groups. And then I think there was one day when we did a sort of, on the house side, the rooms are even a little smaller too, so that becomes trickier as well.
So one of the things that I'd like the group to consider, we haven't made a decision, but that the board members that are elected and have a 6-year term should probably have priority to those meetings. That's just thinking about it.
It also may help us if we were given the information on who the staffer is in their office that's going to meet with us when we're not meeting with one of the officials, in case we might know them or know of them or something like that, help make that decision on who should go where.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can name the staffer. Sometimes there's a change where you meet with the staffer when you didn't plan to. I've mentioned before that often it's not a slight to meet with the staff. The staffers do a lot of the legwork. They're very knowledgeable. They are often the experts that the elected officials look to for the movement of legislation, and so it is a great person to speak to in those senses.
And this is not something that you don't already know, but if the students can make it personal, they can tell an anecdote in how the Pell Grant helped them, could have helped them had it not been taxable, something along those lines. I could have bought groceries for my family, or I could have paid my car insurance, or I could have done that, and it would have helped me stay out of the loans, because I think that's, if we can send the message that we're trying to keep our kids out of debt, and if they could make that more personal, it surely is more effective,
Yeah,
I think.
thanks for that. Yes. Any other thoughts? I can briefly give a sort of overview of the 3 students we're taking, which is exciting. We have 3 students again this year. One is Roxana Lujano, who is first-generation American, first-generation college student. She is receiving a TRIO grant, so can help us to emphasize the importance of TRIO in her studies. And she's doing her associates in chemical engineering in Northwest Campus right now.
Excuse me, can I ask you you said first-generation American?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Meaning that her parents are immigrants. Minerva Torres is a non-traditional student. She came to the college to do adult basic ed for college and career. And she is a student ambassador for the college. She came from Honduras, where she was a professional, and then her family immigrated to the United States. And couldn't stay there, and so all of her professional degree and all of her expertise sort of had to be put on the shelf, and she had to, in many ways, start again. So she learned about the adult basic ed and the English learner studies, and so she started to learn English, and as she got better at learning English, she became a student ambassador. She moved into the ESL program, and now she's also doing her degree in translation interpretation. She was a keynote at the Arizona Adult Ed Initiative, and so she's pretty inspirational. And then the third student we're bringing is Brandon Warren, who is an aviation student, so we can highlight our Center of Excellence there and some of the unique offerings that the college does there. Brandon's story is interesting because he originally did an associate's degree in criminal justice at Pima, and then finished that degree and discovered in applying for the police academy that he was colorblind and so ineligible. And he went to a sort of his fallback plan, and he started again, and he's doing this aviation degree, and it's another exciting story. Also a Pell recipient.
Could you maybe put those short bios on a sheet of paper and send it to us so we don't embarrass ourselves in front of the students?
I'm happy to
Which
do that.
won't guarantee that, but it'll help us.
And another suggestion is, could we have a little mixer and get to know them before we're there? So instead of, us talking about ourselves, when we're there, we're just ready to go, and, we've sort of talked about who's going to say what and that sort of thing?
I'd love to do that, yeah. I'll see, it's sometimes tricky to work their schedules now that they're starting their new semester.
Yeah.
But another thing I was thinking along that line is that, we traditionally do a dinner with the chancellor, and the chancellor mentioned that she would like to do that again that first night when we arrive. And one of the mistakes I sort of made last year, we'd gotten off the plane, we came to this thing, and then we all sat in one end of the table. And I'd like for us to sort of find a way where we could mix in so that the students are around, so that board members have a chance to talk one-on-one with students rather than having to shout across the table to say hello. New restaurant? Okay.
Well, I mean, if we can't make it work when we're still in Tucson, I mean, I wonder if there's a way, instead of using, I agree with everything you said, by the way, but instead of using that dinner, I don't know when everyone is arriving and all that kind of stuff, but maybe there's a way we can all get together, not around a table right before we go to dinner or something, and just, have a chance to kind of socialize without the restaurant noise and yelling across the table and all that kind of stuff, to combine those together if we're not able to do it based on their schedules when we're here. At least we'll all be there, presumably, that first day.
Well, we have a few weeks before the trip, and so I'll work with Andrea, and we'll see if we can find a workable time for everybody to get together.
So give us a quick overview on what the orientation for these students looks like. We invited the students, and then we do a lot of the paperwork and stuff, and then I've done these sort of informal Zooms, essentially, where during our interview process, we give them a lot of the background of what we expect from them and what would be helpful when they're making their visit. And then I have sort of a meet for them to meet one another. It's online, and then we talk about other things. We go over, making sure that you're prepared for the DC weather and all those things. And we go over, once again, sort of things that would be helpful for them to share. And the students, I think, are, they're telling their story, and they're sharing sort of the bits we've said, it's helpful to highlight that you're a TRIO student, stuff like that. And they take it very well from there.
I got that text message earlier from Andrea that was telling me I needed to get on my email and fill out that White House form or whatever, which I did. Where does that, timing-wise, assuming it happens, and where does that fit? I didn't see it. Maybe I just missed it when I was looking at the schedule.
Yes, so that is complicated because we don't know until, it's sort of the way the White House works, whether we will be able to go at all, and if so, what the time is, what the window is, and which day it is. But there's sort of a 2-day window that they were asking about, which is the Tuesday and the Wednesday. On the agenda, the Monday is sort of full of conference activities, and then Tuesday is sort of the first half of the day, and then the afternoon is meant to be visiting Hill time, and then the same on Wednesday. And so they'll give a window for visiting, which can be as long or as short as you want, but it's probably about a 20-minute tour, and so it should be workable. I think if there was a conflict, we could decide, once again, that which members are going to be joining the meeting and which ones are going to go on the tour instead, which is a difficult choice to make, but but might be necessary if there's a conflict. Yes.
Can we submit our spouses' names to visit, to do the tour? Yes or no?
I don't.
Andrea resent it today, and she says that we have to fill it out, and if you're bringing somebody, they have to fill it out.
Can you give us a brief overview of the impact that the U.S. Department of Education has on this college? what purse strings are aligned and available?
So I don't have a complete picture of that. I think that's probably a better question for Dave, but Dr. B. But we do have in the sort of that part 2 of this, we do have a lot of sort of examples of grants and funding. We are waiting, some of this will be updated also, where we're trying to get specific numbers for the calendar year 2023 about the number of active grants and the dollar amount that we do annually. We haven't gotten that number, that figure yet, but we will have that in the final document for this.
Is that money go through the U.S. Department of Education?
Some of those grants will be through education, some of them will be through other federal agencies, but this is meant to be all the full picture. And then you can see here, we also say that the total Pell grants that dispersed in the 22-23 school year was almost 24 million.
So that grant you were talking about, is it Title V?
Correct.
That's through the U.S. Department of Education?
Yes.
Knowing a little bit about that might help us just on an aside, have that conversation about reinforcing what that means to distance learning or something along those lines, that if we do get a chance to mention something like that, we could do it. Oh, by the way, we thank you for appropriating that money for the department to give to us to make an impact on our online students that have alternative learning styles or something. I mean, so we might know that, and we could catch a staffer and mention that to them as well, because I'm not so sure they're always aware of how that money flows to us sometimes and what impact it could possibly have on our students. So just a thought.
Great, okay. Any other thoughts? Great, thank you.
Are we going to get a budget before, a federal budget in the near future? No.
Not
Always good news, right? And I take it the governor's budget's dead on arrival? Most of it? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
The budget that she submitted that did not give us any money, you mean that budget?
Yes, I think she did mention higher education, but there was no money allocated, so at least they're thinking about us, but put your money where your mouth is, right? Okay, anything else? Okay, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.